Hey, Josh, what do you use to listen to all your podcasts? Because I know you're a big podcast fan. What kind of app do you use?
I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time. Religious podcasts, sports podcasts. I use Podcast Republic, dude.
You use Podcast Republic?
I do. I love it.
Absolutely. You know why I use it? Because it's a great app. So fans of the Empty Wagon Fans Football Podcast, if you own an Android device, do us a favor, go to the Google Play Store and download Podcast Republic app. Fantastic app that allows you to get all your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device, as proven by myself and Josh. That's Podcast Republic app. We use it. We love it. Search all the podcasts, favorites, one click away. Easy, smooth. So make sure to set Empty Wagon Fans Football Podcast as a favorite so you don't miss any episodes here from the guys. Again, that's Podcast Republic app. Available on your Android device.
Welcome to the Empty Wagon Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host today, Josh, and I'm here with Brad. Pat took the week off, so it's just going to be us today. We got an interesting show coming up for you. We're going to talk about our NFC South preview, and we're going to have 10 draft tips that we're going to use. I hope you guys are excited. It's going to be a good one. Brad, how was your weekend, man?
My weekend's been good so far. A little less eventful than yours, I think. I mean, I know you had some serious hard labor going on.
Yeah, I put up a fence. It was a good time, though. It was a good time. Did you do anything interesting?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, that's good. Good talk show. So we'll go ahead and start with our rumors and reports. Anything interesting happen other than the Jets running back situation?
So, yeah, Elijah McGuire. I mean, he's having foot surgery, and with every player we've seen with foot surgery, usually doesn't spell a good season.
That is true. The last thing that I read was he was going to miss 3 to 6 weeks, and you think he's going to start the season on the pup.
I heard he possibly could even start on the IR, not even just the pup.
So do you think that this will increase Chris Ivory's drafts? Not Chris Ivory, excuse me. He doesn't play for them anymore. He plays for the Bills. So do you think that this will change the running back situation in New York?
I think what it does is it gives a clearer path for Chris Ivory, or not Chris Ivory. Why you got me saying Chris Ivory now? For Isaiah Crowell to get a...
Same guy.
Actually, when you look at the numbers, they are very similar
to
the way they run and everything. But I think it does give us a clear path for the Crow to fly.
Oh, the Crow.
I mean, the offensive line there is still trash. So
yeah, it is. We're hoping that this is going to be a good thing. If you're looking to pick up the Crow a little bit later, maybe he'll finally materialize and be that running back that he was supposed to be. We just don't know. I'm not banking on it because he's got, like I said, I think he's got that Trent Richardson syndrome where he cannot hit an open hole. By the way, Pat is actually up in New England right now. If you guys have seen us on Twitter, you might have seen that he's over at Gillette Stadium. Seeing Taylor Swift. Big Taylor Swift fan.
Super jealous. Super jealous.
And Brad is also a very big Taylor Swift fan. She's okay. I'm not really into her. But anyway, I don't have any issues with her. I think that they're way worse role models for my little girls than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, but have fun, Pat. I think he had a blast. I saw some pictures he sent out. I mean, obviously that picture he sent of Taylor Swift underneath all the banners. Yeah,
but before we get into our segment, we want to make sure you guys tell your friends about us on our podcast. We have a giveaway we're getting ready to do. We know the season's coming up. We're going to have some interesting shows for you. We're going to do at least 2 a week. Whenever the season kicks off, we're probably looking at doing that around week 3 or 4 of the preseason. We're going to start 2 episodes, possibly, or maybe it could be week 1.
Yeah, we're going to try to give you a week preview and then a week recap each week.
Exactly.
And maybe some more bonus depending on what kind of news breaks week to week.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into it. We'll go ahead and start with our NFC South preview. And if you're ready, Brad, we'll go ahead and kick it off with the Falcons.
So the Atlanta Falcons last year, I think most people would say it was kind of a disappointing year. What do you think, Josh? Disappointing, especially Matt Ryan?
Well, Matt Ryan always disappoints.
Well, he was the year prior. He was a top running back or top quarterback.
Well, he definitely wasn't a top running back.
No, it definitely wasn't that. Top quarterback.
Matt Ryan is, he got drafted the same year with Joe Flacco. I know he's had better numbers, but to me, Matt Ryan is one of those guys that you take as your QB2. If you're going to take a QB2.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that with good matchups, he will perform well, but he's not going to beat a bad matchup is what I see. I mean, I think he's going to have similar production that he's had last year. You know, he's going to flirt with that 4,000-yard total. And if they don't give Julio Jones the ball in the end zone, his touchdown numbers will be, middle of the road for a quarterback. We're talking somewhere between 25 and 28 touchdowns with double-digit interceptions, which doesn't sound terrible. But when you look at the rest of the quarterbacks out there and he doesn't run, which also kind of hurts his floor a little bit, you're looking at Matt Ryan. And the thing with Matt Ryan is that his ADP, let me pull it up here.
I think with Matt Ryan,
his ADP is 104. So you can get him pretty late in your draft.
Yeah, I mean, in 10-teams league, he's obviously going to be, 10th round, 9th round for some 12-team leagues. To me, there's better options even after him.
There are. I mean, and that's what I really don't like about Matt Ryan is that you can get somebody else around his position.
There's actually a guy that I've been looking at. He's not going drafted in any of our leagues, and I think he's going to give you fair value at quarterback, and that's going to be Case Keenum.
Yeah. And Case Keenum's weapons, he probably doesn't have a big standout like Julio Jones, which I'll get into in a second, but he does have, I think, a better assortment of weapons.
And, well, actually, I was going to get into that, too, whenever you get to your stuff, is I read Calvin Ridley had a little hamstring issue. Yeah. I know how you feel about those soft tissue injuries.
Soft tissue injuries will ruin your season. So let's jump into those wide receivers in.
Okay.
Julio Jones. He's still under 30, which is always a plus, right? But last year, we saw what happened. His touchdown numbers were what killed him, right? I mean, he never got targeted in the red zone.
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. And for a big wide receiver, that is terrible.
It's bad.
His yardage numbers were good. His reception numbers were good. But you just couldn't rely on him to get you a touchdown. And that is going to kill you. I mean, every year it seems like he has that one big game that will propel him into the top 5 wide receivers. I mean, who did he do it against last year? Was it the Bucs?
Yeah, it was the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers, and he put up like 50 points in 1 week in PPR.
And then he didn't do anything else. There's another receiver that did that, Amari Cooper.
Yeah, and both Alabama guys.
Hey, I'm not making comparisons.
I mean, they're there, though. They're so blatantly obvious. I mean, I see Julio Jones' touchdown numbers going up, but his problem with Julio Jones is ADP of 13. I mean, even in a 12 team, that's the first pick in the second round. I just think that's way too high with other wide receivers that you can pull off that board. I just don't like it at all. I don't know how you feel about it. But
I'd rather have AJ Green, and he's going after him.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can get AJ Green. I have these ADP numbers pulled up, and it's really messing me up now.
It's okay. I mean, you can get guys like Adam Thielen. You can go
get Michael Thomas.
Keenan Allen.
Devontae Adams. Even Doug Baldwin, almost 2 rounds later.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. And then the running backs that are there, I think are way more valuable than Julio Jones. Julio Jones probably will win you 1 week, but the rest of the weeks he could lose them for you.
It's going to be a glorious week.
Yeah, but the rest of your season is going to be really trash because you can't bench him.
Yeah, I mean, ask those Julio Jones owners last year, guys. Ask them how they felt about owning him.
And then, like you brought up Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, the other wide receivers there. I mean, they're flash in the pan guys is what I really see. Like, you're going to start them on bye week fill-ins, maybe throw them in your flex when you really need to, but you're not going to really like it. And you're going to pray for, 5 touchdowns and fall in the end zone for both of them. And if Calvin Ridley, if he does have a hamstring or any of those lingering issues, especially for a smaller framed wide receiver who needs to beat people deep, he's not going to over-jump defensive backs and get pushed around in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. He does have one thing working for him, and that's the fact that he's an incredible route runner.
Yeah, incredible route runner. And he does have an accurate quarterback. I mean, Matt Ryan is pretty accurate when they get open. But like I said, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, the big difference here is like projection-wise, I got them almost exactly the same. But the problem is that ADP-wise, Mohamed Sanu is going like 40 picks later. I just don't want to put all my eggs in the Calvin Ridley basket when I can get Mohamed Sanu 4 rounds later.
No, I agree.
And then let's move on to what I think is actually a good situation in Atlanta is the running back situation. The way they utilize their running back, especially in a PPR format, is amazing because they give them receptions. I think last year both of them had close to 50 receptions, which makes them great numbers, and they get in the end zone. They do the one thing that Julio doesn't do, receiving the ball, is get in the end zone.
Yeah, that's true. Tevin Coleman especially, I think, receiving-wise, right?
What?
Tevin Coleman especially, receiving-wise, right?
Yeah, and Devontae Freeman, because he may get hurt, Tevin Coleman usually steps up in a few games. Even when you think he's not going to because of sickle cell in Denver, he still has a great game.
Yeah, that hurt. That hurt.
Does that affect you, Josh?
It did. Directly affected me. So, good.
So, Devontae Freeman is going around pick 15. So, you can get him in the middle of your second round, depending on your 10, 15-team league.
Which I think is better for him because here lately he's been going in the first round of drafts.
Yeah, he had that huge rookie season. You remember that rookie season where he started off like just dominating? I think he had like 6 touchdowns in 6 games, and he was just destroying. Mm-hmm. And I think people are still living up to that hype. So I think him as a second rounder, as possibly your RB2 or your RB1 with a premier wide receiver, actually fits his role better than using a big draft capital on him because he can do that, those flashes. But the problem with Devontae Freeman is 16 games. Is he going to be there for you 16 games? It seems like every time when he gets hit or gets up, it's similar to like C.J. Anderson. Like are they hurt? Like takes them a while to get up. They kind of do they don't just pop up. They don't pop up like Ezekiel Elliott, like a spoon in his mouth.
No, he doesn't.
And then Tevin Coleman's ADP 76, so about 6th, 7th round.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, it's an RB2 numbers. So 6th round, get my RB2 or my flex.
These guys that are like that, your Tevin Colemans, your Rex Burkheads, they give you RB2 numbers. I mean, not consistently, but when you need that bye week fill-in, those are the guys that you want. Yeah,
and like we said, Devontae Freeman may miss a game, so Tevin Coleman can step up there and be ready to go. This is Tevin Coleman's, his contract year. So
yeah, he won't be a Falcon past this season, but I think that they're going to use that.
No, they'll use it. They'll run him in the ground. They don't care. I don't know. Why would they care? They're going back, trying to get back to the Super Bowl. That's what Atlanta's goal is.
He's always heavily involved in the passing game, which is great for PPR.
Yep. And then Austin Hooper at tight end.
Who cares?
He had some games last year. He did have flashes. Problem with it is, though, when you look at Julio Jones getting his 15 targets, Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, probably between the two of them, soaking up about 10 targets. That's already 25 targets right there between two players. And then you add in Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley. Hooper's pretty much going to be the low man on the totem pole. His big plays last year were broke down plays where they forgot to cover him. He was on the wrong side of the field, and Matt Ryan just lobbed him an easy play. He is athletic, but just in that system, I just don't see him working out too well. That Sarkisian system, which I really didn't understand last year.
No one did.
I mean, yeah. Why you only
Sark didn't understand it.
I think he thought he was still down at Alabama.
I think he was probably still drinking at USC.
Maybe.
Poor Sark. I do wish him well, though.
Anything you want to add about Atlanta there?
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think the greatest value, like you said here, is the running backs.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So if you're ready, I'll jump right into the Panthers. All right. So the Panthers, the first player I want to talk about is Christian McCaffrey. So right now he's got an 18 ADP, so he's going in the second round, and that's in PPR. Last year he finished as the RB10. So he finished as an RB1, but he's actually being taken late in the second round, and there are plenty of guys that are going ahead of him. Now, the things that I think hurt his value, and this is what hurts pretty much everyone's value on this, is Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen, him being healthy this year, affects everyone else down the board. It affects Cam Newton. It affects the wide receivers. It affects C.J. Anderson, which C.J. Anderson also hurts Christian McCaffrey's value. I mean, he's going to have a similar role that he had last year, and they're saying that they want to get him 200 touches this year, which he got about 175 last year. But if you looked at him running the ball, he actually was not a good running back.
No.
He caught a lot of passes, over 80 catches, but running the ball, the guy's yards per carry were horrendous. He did add 7 pounds of muscle, and for a guy who's already very large for his frame, that's good because you're hoping that he's going to end up running the ball a little bit more this year. And we'll see what happens, but I do think C.J. Anderson, a lot of people forget is that he actually stays pretty healthy, and he's still very young. I mean, he only worked out one contract with the Broncos. So C.J. Anderson being there, he's going to take some carries. I think they're going to end up splitting it, but Christian McCaffrey will still have that catching down work. That's not going to change. So I think he's still going to end up being a pretty relevant guy. I'd like to have him as my RB2 personally.
Yeah. In In a PPR format.
In a PPR, in a standard, you don't touch him.
You don't go near him, yeah. Because he isn't getting any goal line work. No running back there gets goal line work.
No, it's Cam Newton. He's the running back that gets the goal line work. So, yeah, but I still like Christian McCaffrey. I like what he brings to the table. And I think another year in the NFL, he was incredible in college. And I think another year under his belt, he's going to end up being a lot better, a lot more productive this year as far as a running back goes, running the ball. Now, Cam Newton, he's actually being the 7th quarterback taken overall. He's got a 79 overall ADP. He's had 5 top 5 finishes in his career. Pretty good. He's only played 7 years. However, the past 4 years, he's only been good every other year. Guess what? Last year, he was the number 3 QB overall. So that tells me if this trend continues, he will end up as the 17th quarterback overall, which is what he ended up the other 2 years. So he finished as he finished as number 17, number 1, number 17, and number 3. Now, I think that this trend will break this year, personally. I think that he's always got that upside because he runs the ball a lot. That's not going to change. I know that they're saying North Turner wants to use him more as a passer, but that's his deal is to run the ball. He's athletic.
He quarterback sneaks, obviously in the goal line. We talked about that. But he will also take, if it's broke down and there's nothing there to throw to, he's going to get the first down with his legs. He can still get the first down. He can still run over a safety. We saw it last year. He had I think it was a 50-yard run.
The dude is incredible. I mean, I've seen him play in person, and I love Cam Newton, and I'm not going to hide that. But I think him being taken as a 7th quarterback overall, I think that's not bad whenever you consider there are 6 guys that have been taken ahead of him. Whenever he does have that potential to finish, but you got to understand that with the reward, there is a lot of risk. He could have another down year. And even though he finished highly last year, it didn't look great. I watched a lot of his games. I mean, he was missing receivers left and right. I mean, some of that people are saying the shoulder. He's saying that he's healthy this year. I don't know. Not having Kelvin Benjamin, not having Greg Olsen, a lot of those things might have affected him, but he just didn't look like he was on the same page with his guys last year.
Yeah, I mean, he had Devin Funchess, converted tight end to wide receiver.
That was his 3rd year playing
and then
wide
this
receiver.
Is the first really premier passing running back he's got, pass catching running back. And Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he's had other running backs there, but not as Christian McCaffrey is a passing down guy.
Absolutely.
So I think that is just changing the system a lot for him. But he still was, I think, halfway through the season, almost 3/4 through the season, he had every touchdown they had, he was a part of it. He threw for it or ran for it.
I mean, Cam Newton, that's why he is an incredible fantasy quarterback. Real life quarterback, he's not even in the top 10 in my mind. But in fantasy, he's consistently.
He's one of the best dressed, though.
Well, I don't actually like the way he dressed, and I love him as a human being. And anyway, so there's an interesting stat, and it kind of leads me into the next portion of this team, is that he's never produced a number 1 wide receiver beyond his rookie year. And that gentleman was Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, yeah.
But only that first year, he produced a wide receiver 1. Other than that, Devin Funchess was the closest one last year, and he finishes 21st overall. That's a wide receiver 2, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the good news about this is that Devin Funchess is the 36th wide receiver going off the board, and DJ Moore is the 45th wide receiver going off the board in PPR formats. However, Devin Funchess only had 63 catches last year. He had 8 touchdowns. That's what helped him a lot. Greg Olsen being back is what is going to hurt these guys even more. Cam Newton, we talked about it. He gets his points from running the ball in fantasy. These guys, I mean, if you're taking him a 36 wide receiver, he's probably going to be a wide receiver 3. That's okay. However, I'm expecting Devin Funchess to take a step back this year. I think what we saw last year might have actually been his ceiling.
I agree. Like you said, with Greg Olsen being gone, that changed the whole dynamic of that team. And then they traded Kelvin Benjamin halfway through the year, which pretty much made Devin Funchess be the wide receiver. We talked about it last week with the Giants and Evan Ingram being the main target, only target there. Mm-hmm. Same thing happened with Devin Funchess last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Devin Funchess being the only option is what actually enabled him to finish as highly as he could. But I wouldn't bank on that again this year, to be honest with you guys. DJ Moore is the 45th wide receiver. Okay, great. But like I said, he's only produced 1 wide receiver one his entire career. So you guys don't need to bank on these guys to break through. If you're taking DJ Moore late, 112th overall, that's 11th round, you could take a stab at it. But why not take a guy who might be able to support more production from his receivers? Cam Newton's just not that guy. And, we'll go ahead and roll into Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen is the guy who's finished at least 7th every year since Cam's sophomore season, which was 2012. Well, that's what I was going to get to. Last year he was hurt. So most of the time he's actually finished in the top 5. He's being drafted 59th overall, and he's the 5th tight end. That's actually a good spot for him. That's about where he should be. Greg Olsen, he's got the contract extension. He's the one that's going to affect everything. So Cam Newton hyper-targets him because he gets open. The guy, he can beat linebackers, and that's what he's supposed to do. We've talked about this, me and you, privately, when we talked about the foot history. With this foot surgery, most guys have to have 2 surgeries.
Yep. Dez had to have 2, Julian Edelman. You see reduced productivity. We saw it last year when Greg Olsen tried to come back. Yes. He wasn't as productive.
Yeah, and that could have been just a case of him trying to come back too early or whatever, but most of the time, if I'm going to take someone in the 5th round, which is where he's going, I don't honestly think that I can take a guy who, to me, is going to end up having a huge possibility of getting hurt. Like we said, it's just the way that this works. Julio also had to have 2 surgeries with this foot. Sammy Watkins. I mean, Greg Olsen, and he's older. These guys had it a lot younger in their careers. What makes you think that Greg Olsen is going to be the guy that's like, oh, yeah, I'm Superman. I'll be fine.
Yeah, there were rumors that he was retiring too.
Exactly. So I'm more interested, believe it or not, I'm actually more interested in taking a wide receiver like a DJ Moore later on instead of this. I'm actually probably going to stay clear of Greg Olsen unless he falls. If he falls in the draft, and maybe he slides to the 8th round, which he probably won't, but in our draft, there's no telling what will happen. Yeah. He could be in the 1st round.
What was Greg Olsen's ADP again?
ADP was 59th overall.
I think it's a little high because you're talking, that's 12-team league, that's 4th round.
Yeah, and there are tight ends that I actually like better than him. I mean, I know you think Jimmy Graham will finish as a top 5 tight end. Evan Ingram, he'll probably be there. I like Trey Burton. There are other guys to me, Delaney Walker, who I feel like are less risk involved. So anyway, that's what I have with the Panthers. Anything you want to add, Brad?
I think DJ Moore is probably the most talented wide receiver that Cam's had since Steve Smith, and I think that's the reason he hasn't had a number 1 wide receiver, is that he has not had a Steve Smith caliber player. And that's a problem. I mean, when you don't have the talent, you can't produce there's very few quarterbacks that make number 1 wide receivers out of number 3 wide receiver talent.
Tom Brady.
Yeah. Maybe.
Aaron Rodgers.
That's your boy Devontae Adams.
Okay, well.
I think great information.
Okay, thanks, man. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit off the Saints.
The Saints. All right, Saints last year. Right? Changed the whole philosophy of the team last year, it looked like. They went from this heavy passing team that spread the ball around so much to more of not a smash mouth offense, but a ground and pound. Drew Brees making the right pass, getting the 1st down, methodical, improved defense, which I think really surprised a lot of people too, with Saints defense being so much better than it was prior. So we'll just start with Drew Brees. Drew Brees last year, big time down year, right? Everybody was upset because Drew Brees has always been, pencil it in, a QB1, right? You get him early, QB1, set it, forget it. Don't have to worry about it. You don't care. Last year he was down, touchdown numbers were down. His completion percentage was actually up though. He just didn't throw the ball as much. He didn't have the 500 attempts that he usually gets because they were actually being smarter with the ball and running the ball and doing more time management. And they were winning a lot of games with a better defense and not having to get in these big time shootouts that Drew Brees has had to do his whole time in New Orleans. So this year, I think Drew Brees, it'll go up from what it was last year. It won't be as good as it has been in prior years. We're not looking at MVP caliber Drew Brees numbers, but we're looking at quality Drew Brees numbers. His ADP is 74, so I still think it's a little early for what you're going to get. I think you could probably maybe stream and patch something together, but there will be people that take Drew Brees this early on name value alone. I'm staying away from him.
Yes, they will.
the running backs. The running backs in New Orleans last year. I know there was a lot of hype with Alvin Kamara last year, but we were like, oh, Adrian Peterson's there. He's not going to get on the field, which was true until they got rid of Adrian Peterson. And now Alvin Kamara is everybody's new fancy pretty toy. And Mark Ingram suspended for the first 4 games.
Ooh.
And then there's a bye week coming in there. So that just, I think, kind of screws up Mark Ingram's value completely. But Alvin Kamara, ADP of 6. I honestly think it's a little high.
Really?
A little high.
So if we may for a minute, I was actually seeing a lot of drafts that I'm doing. So I'm doing a lot of mocks right now. And I actually like him. He's going 5th. To me, I actually like him as the 5th overall pick and the 5th running back. I was wanting to see how you felt about that.
So 5th running back, when I look, so Alvin Kamara last year, he was great. He was super efficient. He didn't get hyper targeted. He didn't get hyper carried like Ezekiel Elliott does, and obviously your big 4 guys do. But I don't see. I'm just worried that there's going to be a drop off, a big time drop off. Defenses have seen him more. For the first 4 weeks, he will be the guy, even though they have other backs sort of in camp and going to be playing there. But he's still going to be the primary running back. When he's on the field, defenses are going to key on him and stop him. The thing that does help him is that he has Drew Brees, so he doesn't see the 8, 9 in the box like Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson. We'll see. And even a Todd Gurley, we'll see. But, I mean, you can get like a Melvin Gordon, even Kareem Hunt, who I know last year he started off strong, was terrible in the middle, and then ended somewhat strong. And then Leonard Fournette, these are guys that I can get a little later. I could probably use that pick on, Antonio Brown, maybe, or DeAndre Hopkins in a PPR format.
So you're saying where he's being drafted is too high, so it's like a bust.
He's like, okay, so we talked about the Devonta Freeman earlier.
Yeah.
I think it's similar to Devonta Freeman.
So you think his numbers and everything, he should be in that category?
Yeah, he'll be a fringe RB1.
Okay.
Like Devonta Freeman is fringe RB1.
Okay.
Because same thing with Devonta Freeman. Awesome rookie year, blew up, great numbers, and now defense gets some film on him. He starts taking some wear and tear.
Yeah, I mean, because if he does what he did last year, he'd go down as one of the most prolific running backs in all of history of the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to replicate.
He won Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. He played half a season, and another rookie led the league in rushing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I've actually started to kind of warm up to the idea of taking Alvin Kamara, especially with the suspension of Mark Ingram.
Well, I mean, if you're there and you want a running back, he's probably the running back I'm probably going to take. It's like taking Devonta Freeman the last couple of years.
Okay.
Like you didn't really want to, but he was there, and you saw the path for him to be that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that because that answers one of my questions.
And then let's jump into the rest of these guys, right? So we got Mark Ingram. We talked about suspended for 4 games. I think Mark Ingram, he's going in pick 52. So we're talking into the 4th, beginning of the 5th round, depending on how you play. And he may fall even later too, because people might just see this little suspension tag next to his name and stay away from it. His end of the year numbers are going to look bad. I mean, you lose 4 games, your end of the year numbers are going to be bad. But when he comes back, he's still going to get the work share that he got last year. We're still going to see him. I think they started using Kamara more in the goal line last year, but I think Mark Ingram's still the more power runner. And Mark Ingram can catch the ball. I know everybody's like, oh. I see a lot from Mark Ingram this year. It is a contract year, which means something to some people.
It was funny because before the suspension, he was talking about holding out.
Yeah. Well, now he's holding out.
Yeah, well.
Not because he wants to, though.
Good job, buddy.
And then the wide receivers. Really only one wide receiver that you want to have. There's some other ones, because it is Drew Brees. He does get the ball to the open guy. They can have flashes and have some, sparks and some plays. But Michael Thomas is the guy.
I loved owning Michael Thomas last year.
Yeah, especially in PPR. Standard, he's good. But in PPR, he's amazing.
And surprisingly consistent for a New Orleans receiver.
I think it's a change in philosophy now.
Yeah.
With Drew Brees not trying to have to do everything himself and going deep, Michael Thomas is that perfect short yardage, possession type wide receiver that he can get the ball to. He can get 100 catches. They might not be flashy numbers. It may be 5-6 catches for 60 yards and hopefully a touchdown. But that's still quality numbers. And he's going pick 15, ADP 15. So, like I said, I like him even over Julio because he gets more targets in the red zone than Julio gets. And until I see the targets in the end zone from Julio, it really sours me on Julio and actually makes people like Michael Thomas coming to his third year. He's gotten better every year too.
I think that's one thing that we could start to see from Julio within the next few years is him starting to develop that red zone a little bit more because he's getting older. He's going to slow down. Michael Thomas, though, is a solid receiver. I hadn't watched a lot of his film until last year when I owned him, and I was actually really impressed with what I saw, man.
Yeah. The thing about Michael Thomas, though, is it's his third year. He is a younger wide receiver, but he's not young. He played 4 years at Ohio State. He is 25 years old, turning 26. So you have to keep that in mind if you're playing any type of dynasty or anything. Like, just not that he's going to fall off or anything. And he's in a great system. As long as he has Drew Brees, I like him.
Yeah.
If anything happens to Drew Brees, obviously with the whole New Orleans, it kind of will change a lot. Then they picked up Cam Meredith in the offseason. If he's healthy, if that knee's right, he could be a good. He's obviously a better number 2 than a Ted Ginn, a more consistent.
Go deep.
Yeah, Ted Ginn, you're just praying on 1 for 90 and a touchdown.
Hey, man, best ball.
Best ball. Ted Ginn is a man, but Ted Ginn drops a lot of balls.
Yeah, well.
So Cam Meredith, his ADP is really late. It is 127th, so you can get him as that, just into your bench, set him back there.
Yeah, I mean, he started to come on with the Bears year before last.
Yeah, and then he had that devastating knee injury, which actually happened in camp. So or early in the season, I think it was like week.
No, it was before the season started.
Was it before the season?
Yeah.
So that's actually really good. I mean, not that it's good to have a knee injury, but it's good he has this whole time to heal up.
Yeah, he's had a whole year. So I like Cameron Meredith. We'll see. But like we said, we know that the offensive philosophy has changed in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. It's going to be run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, Michael Thomas.
Yep. And then we'll go to the tight ends here, which I think was pretty disappointing for a lot of people last year because Coby Fleener's supposed to have been the guy for every year since he's been in the league, I think.
Coby Fleener.
Yeah. Since he came to New Orleans, everybody's like, oh, Coby Fleener. He's just going to be amazing.
You don't like Coby Fleener?
No, I don't. Actually, the tight end I do like there is Benjamin Watson.
Old man.
He's old. I mean, we were 37 years old.
He's archaic.
37 years young.
He's older than me and you, so I feel good about it.
I don't, because he could probably still outrun us at a 40.
Yeah, well,
outjump us, everything else.
Well, I had knee surgery, so
yeah.
What's your excuse?
Yeah. He's a professional athlete. That's my excuse.
He could do it even without my knee surgery.
So his ADP is pick 161. So we're talking into the draft. Like, all right, I need a tight end or even a waiver wire pickup for a bye week. Benjamin Watson could be this guy because, like we said, he has Drew Brees. We've seen good games from Benjamin Watson. I'm not saying he's a set it and forget it tight end. Definitely not that. But when you're streaming matchups, why not go with Benjamin Watson? Yeah. He's going to be on the field. He can block, which makes him better than Coby Fleener.
Yeah, poor Coby. Coby.
Ooh. That's really all I got. I mean, anybody else you want to add in there?
No, dude. I thought you did pretty well. All right, so if you're ready.
Tom Savage is there.
Yeah, well.
You want to talk about that? No?
Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump into the Buccaneers. I'm going to talk about their quarterback situation first. Jameis. Well, exactly. He's hot garbage, dude. He's never finished as a QB1. Never. Last year, if he would have played all 16 games, he would have finished as 15th. Still not a QB1. The interceptions is the biggest thing that hurts Jameis. The guy can't see. And he can't stay out of trouble. Jameis is as far away from a player I think I want to be. I mean, I understand he's the 22nd quarterback going off the board, 162 overall, which puts him at 14th, 15th, 16th round, something like that. I still think it's too high. I wouldn't even draft him. I like other guys better. I think the Buccaneers are realizing, too, that they made a clear mistake in taking Jameis Winston. Yeah, to me, I would stay away from him. And he doesn't do much for his role players either. So you got Rojo, Ronald Johnson. You got
Ronald Jones.
Sorry, I don't know why I said Ronald Johnson. You got Rojo. You got Peyton Barber, Charles.
I know why you said that. You're thinking of somebody else.
Doesn't matter.
A little Kerryon Johnson in your mind there? Is that what's going on?
Maybe. I do love him. No, I know who Kerryon is. And Jaquiz is still there. The only one that's actually being drafted is Ronald Jones. And he's going as a 27th running back overall. So people are taking him as their RB3. 56th overall. So at the 5th round, though, there's still guys that I like better, I think, than Ronald Jones. Maybe if he was a rookie draft, yeah, like you took him in a rookie draft, and I think that's good in a dynasty situation. But right now, this backfield is muddied. I've heard that they're looking to give him 15 to 20 carries, but Peyton Barber earned a little bit of work last year with what he did. And you still have those other guys who are going to get passing down work. This is a messy situation, man.
Yeah, Charleston III will be back healthy. I think you brought him up. And he was the passing down back until he got hurt. And when he got hurt, that opened up a lot for Peyton Barber and these other guys.
Yeah, it's just it's an ugly situation and one that I'm hoping to avoid, especially him going at 56th overall. There's other guys that I'm probably going to take there. I'm just not going to take Rojo there. If he falls a little bit, maybe, but I think that you're going to, if you take him there, you're going to get what you pay for. And by that, I mean you're going to get a regret is what you're going to get. So it's just a bad situation. Now we'll move on to the wide receivers. So there's only one wide receiver that's really worth noting, but I was kind of surprised when I started digging into the numbers. He's the 9th wide receiver being taken, Mike Evans. He's 24th overall. So that's 2nd round in 12-team leagues, 3rd round in 10-team leagues. The problem with this Mike Evans character is, do you know how many times he's finished as a wide receiver one?
His rookie year?
1 time, Brad.
His rookie year?
Yeah, one. No, it wasn't his rookie. It was his sophomore season. Excuse me. Yeah, 1 time. So he's been consistently taken as a wide receiver one, and he's only produced wide receiver one numbers 1 time.
I still like him.
I understand you like him. You could like him all day. But facts are facts. And even with Jameis and Fitzmagic and all these other guys that they've had throwing him the ball, he still only produced and earned that draft capital 1 time. So me taking him as my wide receiver one, which is what people are doing here, they're going running back, wide receiver, and Mike Evans is on the board. I can't trust him. I can't trust that when I looked at the numbers. I mean, he finished in the teens a lot of the times. So it's apparent to me that you can get better value elsewhere.
Yeah, the problem with Mike Evans is that when you're drafting him and you're looking at wide receiver, let's say you're looking at wide receiver in that round and you look at the wide receivers that are probably on the board, maybe A.J. Green's there, maybe Doug Baldwin, T.Y., Adam Thielen, Larry Fitzgerald, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs.
Mike Evans is like, oh, that looks awesome.
It looks awesome. Those years that year he was great, he was targeted a ton. And that's where he gets is being targeted a lot.
Exactly, but now they have other guys there that he doesn't need to carry the load. So they have other options offensively, and it's really sad to see because you see a guy who he's actually getting paid like he's producing these kind of numbers, but in reality he's not. I mean, he's still had a couple 1,000-yard seasons, but he's only been a wide receiver one in fantasy one time.
So can I give you a little strategy I would have Mike Evans if I draft him this year?
Sure.
So we're assuming, well, obviously we know that Jameis Winston is going to be suspended for the first couple weeks,
yep.
Right? Fitzmagic probably going to be the starter.
Yep.
Last year when Fitzmagic was in there, he targeted Mike Evans a ton.
Okay.
He threw him the ball every time. Draft Mike Evans, wait till about week 2 or 3. He's had a couple good games. You ship him somewhere else, you get some trade capital back.
That's it. That's the only thing I could think of to get this kind of return for him.
But that's what I would do with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
Jameis doesn't go to him.
It's risky if you're taking this guy with your 2nd round pick and you're hoping to sell him. You're hoping that your league has some people who aren't very smart and they don't realize this.
It's hard to say not smart if he's had wide receiver one numbers for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say not smart, but if people aren't doing the research to realize that he's going to come back down to earth
Look
after
at history.
that.
Look at history of a player. Yeah.
So
he's still young, though. He's still younger than Michael Thomas. And he's been in the league 2 years.
But he has a blind quarterback.
Yeah.
That kind of
Is he still not wearing contacts out there?
I don't know. He's always squinting. He reminds me of the Sandlot. Squints. Just bad. Anyway. All right. And then the other guys that they got from the wide receiver position are Adam Humphries. Yep. And they got D-Jack still. He's still in the NFL.
Yep. And they got one more guy. Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin.
Chris Godwin.
Yeah,
I think sleeper.
He is a sleeper because none of them outside of Evans really produced anything last year. There were flashes, so you might have had Adam Humphries and you played him in a little 2 or 3 week hot streak. Then he fell back off. Deshaun Jackson, he's the best ball player. Deshaun Jackson is actually going as the 44th wide receiver overall, and Adam Humphries isn't even getting drafted in most drafts. Neither is Godwin. So to me, they're not really playable assets.
You had a lot of inconsistency last year from Tampa with Jameis in and out of the lineup being hurt. He wasn't consistent. He was hurt on and off, and that really, I think, screwed the whole team up.
Yeah, and then not to mention he's a psychopath. Then you have the tight ends, OJ Howard, and Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate finishes the 10th best tight end in 2017, and he was the 7th best in 2016. Howard finished 21st. Brate is going as the 23rd tight end overall.
I think that's about perfect, and I'll explain why after you talk about OJ.
I want to know because Howard's going 15th. He's going above him.
Yep.
I understand that Howard was incredible in college, but Howard, and he did come on a little later in the season before he got hurt, but $41 million, which is what they gave to Cameron Brate, tells me that he's probably still going to get utilized. Explain this to me.
All right, so I wouldn't draft Cameron Brate because Cameron Brate's good games last year when Cameron Brate performed and was a quality tight end that you could actually play in your lineup was with Jameis Winston. When Jameis is out of the lineup, Fitzmagic holds on to the ball to try to make some magic happen. He'll hold on to that ball forever and he'll get killed. We've seen it everywhere he's played at. He does it everywhere. He's a Harvard grad. Thinks he's smarter than everybody.
No, he is.
And he's the one that got OJ Howard a lot of his work. If you saw it last year, it was
OJ Howard or Cameron Brate?
OJ Howard's work came from Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
Back there, running around, scrambling around, moving around, and then OJ Howard's wide open in the end zone.
All right.
That was a lot of his wide open at the 2-yard line, fall in the end zone. Cameron Brate last year with Jameis Winston was solid PPR numbers that you could actually play week to week. You weren't hoping for a boom or bust play. So when Jameis isn't in the lineup, though, we don't get the Cameron Brate numbers. Fitzmagic does not target his tight ends like Jameis does. Jameis makes tight ends money. He did it in college. He's doing it in the pros. He targets the tight ends because he can't see that far down the field.
So you're thinking it's better to wait on him and then pick him up off the trash heap.
Pick him up waivers. Yep. When Jameis comes back for a bye week fill-in or something like that.
And then utilize him like that.
Yep.
I think, okay, that's what I'm saying. Because to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to take a guy 23rd overall in tight ends. I mean, whenever he's going to produce like a tight end one.
Exactly. But he's not going to produce with Jameis off the field. And we know for a fact Jameis is off the field for the first, it's 3 games, correct?
Yes. 3 games for sexual assault. Way to stand up for your policies, NFL. All right. So after that, I think that's pretty much it with our NFC South preview. If you want, we can roll into these draft tips real fast.
Yeah. So with draft season right around the corner here, we're going to give you guys, we came up with, I think, is it 10?
We got 10.
10 little draft tips that when you go into your draft room that you should know and kind of go by. A lot of these are for live drafts. So if you're in the room with a bunch of people, how to go about your draft. You want to fire it off with the first one there, Josh?
Yeah, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is talking up players. So you have to talk up players that you don't necessarily even want. And what that means is like, so if I'm high on a guy like Adam Thielen, I'm going to be pretty hush-hush on Adam Thielen. But if I don't, and I think that he's the better out of him and Stephon Diggs, I'm going to sit there and, say Stephon Diggs is the best thing since sliced bread. Me and you, we don't have that advantage because we do the show now. But, I mean, being able to sit there and sell somebody on someone you don't really want, so maybe you can grab a guy that you do want, that's a huge strategy.
Yeah. And so we were talking about Mike Evans, right?
Exactly.
Mike Evans is going right there around Adam Thielen, Doug Baldwin. We don't like Mike Evans. Maybe we do talk about Mike Evans' one good year and the target numbers he gets and stuff like that.
He's great value this year, falling in the second round.
Yeah. And you kind of like, you don't blatantly say it that much, but if you guys watch World Series of Poker, a lot of this, what this is just kind of messing with the people you're playing with, because when you're on that clock, those nerves do kick in. You can have like, I'm taking this guy. Oh crap, there's 2 guys up there I kind of like.
Yeah.
And one of them isn't coming back to me. So you're trying to play into your people's things. So with that being said, I'll roll into the next one, which is
know the people in your league.
Know the people in your league. So we have 2 things for know your league. This one's going to be the people. So know how the people, if you've played in this league before, it's a lot easier to do this. If you've never played with these people, or if you're playing in a random online one, it's almost impossible to figure this out. But when you're in a live draft with your buddies, remember how they drafted last year. Remember the tendencies they do. We had a guy in our league that took a quarterback in round 2. I know that.
He said it was a new strategy he was trying out.
Yeah. So just know the people in your league, know how they're going to draft. Know that way you can kind of predict what players are going to fall back down to you.
If you got a Cowboys fan or a Seahawks fan in your league, you can almost sit there and say, well, maybe I'll take a Cowboy and then I'll sell him to this guy. Yeah. Or maybe I'll take a Buccaneer and sell him to this guy.
And that I can use with talking players up. 2 years ago, me and Josh were playing. There was a diehard Green Bay fan. 3rd round, Cam Newton just came off the board. Quarterback run is kind of starting. We start talking up Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers is the number 1 quarterback. Me and him, neither one want quarterbacks.
We don't like him.
But we wanted other players to follow us. And this guy was kind of contemplating not taking Aaron Rodgers. So we just kept saying, if you don't take him, we're going to take him. He won't be there when you get back.
Bingo. So what happened?
He took Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. So knowing your league, huge strategy. And that kind of falls right into our next one, which is the tight end and quarterback strategy. We personally take quarterbacks and tight ends late. And it's based on value, right? So you have to look at the difference. If you're not going to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, which you have to take early to do.
Yes. You're taking same thing with tight ends too. I think both of them. If you're not taking the top 3.
Then the middle, there's really not a difference between the number 4 quarterback and the number 12 quarterback. There's not a huge difference.
And you can even get Carson Wentz was going really late last year in rounds, and he ended up being a top quarterback. He was number 1 quarterback till he got hurt.
Exactly. 2 years ago, we saw a team who just utilized Andy Dalton and Tyrod Taylor and made it all the way to the championship.
Yep. And last year, Alex Smith was your number 1 quarterback.
Absolutely. And he wasn't even drafted in our league. Exactly. So that's the type of thing is that, don't be afraid to wait on those guys. Tight ends, I think I'm still interested in taking a tight end a little bit more than I am a quarterback. Because like I said, I think there are guys like Case Keenum out there who's going to give me solid production. I'm not saying he's going to be a world mover. But he's going to be a guy that will go ahead and get the job done for me. And I can take other positional players, especially when we start having bye weeks and injuries roll in. All right, so the next one, Brad, what do you got?
So tier break your players. All right, what this means is, so we always talk about the top 4 running backs, right? So that's in one tier. And then you got the wide receivers. You got Antonio Brown kind of in his own tier, Hopkins, Odell, maybe Julio you want to put in there. It depends on how you want to rate these players. Rate them in tiers. That way when you're on the clock, and even though you've went running back, you can look and be like, well, I have a tier 2 running back up there, but only tier 3 or 4 wide receivers, or vice versa. That way you're not reaching on players you don't need to reach for. If you tier break these players and you have instead of having one guy you want, you have a little group, because when you're snake drafting, you're not getting everybody you want. Right? It's just not going to happen.
No.
You're going to get people snake from you right before you pick, right after you pick. So just tier break your players. I think it's almost a necessity. It makes it easier to draft. It takes a lot of that pressure off of you when you get on the clock. And the guy you like, I'm taking Todd Gurley with the 2nd pick, and he goes in the 1st pick, and you're like, oh God, I wasn't thinking about this because you thought Le'Veon Bell was going. And now you're kind of on the clock, and you freak out and you take Alvin Kamara.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. Your tiers are huge, and it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily utilize. They use the top 200 or top 300 players, but they don't even have their own tiers figured out. So I think that's a really important strategy. That might be number 1A, maybe. So staying engaged is the next one. Staying engaged is one of those things like you have to know what's going on in your draft. And I think me and Brad, we fall to this, and there are a few other people in our league. We have kids, and sometimes your kids have to go with you to the draft sometimes.
Or there's snacks.
Or there's snacks.
There's drinks going on. You still need to be paying attention even when you're up filling your plate up.
Exactly. My wife 2 years ago, and I had an awful draft. My wife 2 years ago, she had to work on the weekend. I had just had knee surgery. One of my children were in diapers, and we were at someone's house who had dogs, and my son's allergic to dogs. So I had a very difficult time staying engaged. It wasn't an ideal situation. It happened. And it hurt me a lot. So that's one of those things that you have to make sure that you're trying your best to pay attention. If a guy like, Jordan Howard falls off the board and you don't even know it, that's a big issue.
And you look really silly when in the 4th round you stand up, this is you, Rob, and scream Jordan Howard at the top of your lungs, and everybody's like, yeah, he went a long time ago, man.
He went beginning of the 2nd round. Sorry, dude. So yeah, I think that one's important. The next one, Brad, go ahead, take it.
Don't let the run scare you. So what I'm talking about is quarterback runs, tight end runs. So we talked about waiting on your quarterback. So somebody takes a quarterback, and then we get 4 quarterbacks off the board. Don't freak out and be like, oh, I got to grab a quarterback, because if I don't, there's not going to be one there. There are 32 teams in the NFL. Each one of them has to start a quarterback every week. Unless you're in a super deep, super flex league, 2-quarterback league or something like that, don't freak out about a quarterback. Obviously, if you're in a super flex or a 2 QB league, yeah, you kind of need to jump on a quarterback then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just watch what's going on. I mean, we see this a lot. We see it in the real draft too. I mean, we saw it a few years ago in Minnesota. Christian Ponder getting taken because a bunch of quarterbacks went and they freaked out and took a quarterback way too early.
Yeah, there are people who do this for an actual living and they freak out. So it's going to be really difficult for you to maintain your composure, but don't freak out. Like I said, target those guys who are going to go maybe even undrafted.
And that's where tier breakdown comes into effect, because if the top tier quarterbacks came off and you're looking at tier 2 or tier 3 because 4 or 5 quarterbacks went, why reach when you could get a steal?
Exactly, and pay attention to how much points those guys actually get you. So if you're looking at the difference over the course of a season between 320 points and 340 points, 20 points isn't a huge deal over the course of a season.
Especially if you play the matchups right.
Exactly. So if you're looking at the difference between a number 4 and a number 12 quarterback, don't freak out. Just calm down. The next one is the bye weeks, man. I don't think I've paid attention to bye weeks in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I don't.
Don't freak out about these bye weeks. You can overthink this draft.
Unless you're in best ball or something where you cannot make any roster moves, don't worry about bye weeks, because you can make moves to free your team up.
Yeah, and I'm not even ashamed to say it. I'll take a lump on a week if that means I get an overall incredible team or a much better team. I'm okay with that. You know, if that 1 week is going to destroy my season, well, then chances are I was probably having a bad year anyway.
Don't let the bye weeks affect you. So if you have that tier breakdown going on and there's a tier 2 running back out there, but you have 2 running backs with the same bye week, don't take that tier 2 running back, because at worst case scenario, he is better trade capital than that wide receiver or tight end or whatever you're going to go with.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if you get, let's say, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, and Stephon Diggs all on the same team, they have a history of putting up pretty decent numbers. I understand you definitely don't want to do this with the same team, but it's possible for you to sit there and be like, okay, I'll take all these guys and I'll take my lump on my week, or I'll trade them. Adam Thielen still has a really hot name. I don't think he's going to produce as much this year, but he's still got a hot name. Trade him. All right, next one, Brad.
There's a time to reach and a time not to reach.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're pick 1 or pick 12, you're going to have to reach to get the guys you want, because they're not going to fall back down to your lap 23, 24 picks later. You're going to have to go out and grab. Obviously, pick 1, take that number 1 player, right? But when it comes back around to you, maybe go out there and get your solid tier player. And then if there's a guy that you really like, we're talking like 4th or 5th round, go out and get those guys. Don't wait on them to come back to you, because then you're just going to have heartbreak and you're going to hate your draft.
Absolutely. It's tough drafting that early or that late.
And there's obviously tier breakdowns. Again, will help that.
Exactly. The next one is know your league format. And what we mean by that is this PPR or standard? Is this?
We've all had that issue before, right? Last year I drafted a bunch of leagues, and I drafted one that I thought was PPR. I went 0 RB. It was a standard league. My team was trash.
Yeah, is this a dynasty league? That also matters. I mean, it's amazing to say that, you know, do you get extra points for tight end catches? Do you get 1.5 as opposed to 1? You know, if you have to be familiar with the format of your league as far as the rules go, because it can really hurt you. Is this a 6-point touchdown passing league? It makes the quarterback a little bit more important. Yep. I mean, there are things like that you guys have to pay attention to. So get in your rule book in your league and figure out exactly what your rules are, and it can greatly benefit you in the draft.
And also note, you need to draft a kicker and a defense. Are you required for your league? Some leagues require it, some don't. If I'm drafting before the preseason or week 1 or 2 of the preseason, I'm not taking a kicker and a defense, because injuries are going to happen.
Bingo.
And I would rather have a huge depth on my team than have to fight the waiver wire in the offseason with all these other teams. Because a kicker and a defense are pretty replaceable. Kickers especially.
Absolutely.
And the last one here is, you do not win at your draft. I don't care how great you think your draft is. At the end of the season, your draft is not going to matter as much as what you did throughout the year.
Yeah, you lost David Johnson last year.
Yep.
Number 1 pick.
But I got Todd Gurley, but whatever. Yeah.
You still won a championship. That's the thing, though.
Yeah. And I made moves. I traded Alvin Kamara right before he blew up, but I needed a wide receiver.
Exactly.
So you have to make the moves.
You can lose at the draft.
You can really, really hurt yourself at the draft.
I think you could. Well, there's some situations where you can still win even and overcome a poor draft, but the involvement at that level is just.
And it takes a lot of let's say, help from other teams. A lot of maneuvering and moving and shaking, right?
Movers and shakers.
Yeah. So these are just some of the draft tips we use when we go into a draft room. Don't forget them. Please try to remember them. They'll help you out. If you need to, write them down, especially those tier break players. I don't know how much we can stress that. If you have that list of tiers, even if you just take ESPN or whatever format thing you do and you take each position and you just draw a line for tiers for yourself.
Yeah, that's fine. Do something.
That way you know, like, oh, there's a big jump here between Julio Jones and Stephon Diggs, or whatever, however you feel. There's a big jump from Stephon Diggs to Amari Cooper. It's a huge difference, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. Unless you got anything else you want to say, Brian?
Nope. Draft season. Good luck drafting out there, everybody.
Good luck, guys. So we'll go ahead and we'll get ready to close this out. First thing we want to go ahead and is thank Blue Spade Productions for helping us out with their incredible social media presence that they have for us. We want to go ahead and let you know that you can find us anywhere. I'm talking YouTube. We're on Podbean. We're on Podcast Republic, obviously, like we spoke about earlier. We're Stitcher. We're on Stitcher now, right?
Yeah. Anywhere you can find a podcast, we're there. If
iTunes.
we're not, hit us up. We'll put it there.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get up on our Twitter. It's at EmptyWagonFF.
Yep.
EmptyWagonFF. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up with some questions, guys. We're going to be starting releasing some information on getting this giveaway going. Everything. We love you guys. Tell your friends about us and get ready for some football.
Later.